Hello lovelies, and welcome to today's video. My name is Alya and I'm so glad you stopped by. Today we're talking about the importance of vitamin D on the eyes. I know it's a bit of a strange one, but this one came out of a bit of a personal experience, and if you'd like to hear more about it, please do stick around. So today's topic is a little bit unusual because normally my topics are influenced by what I see in the clinic or by questions that people ask me professionally. Today's different. Today is definitely a bit more of a personal experience type situation. To all my lovely watchers who are overseas, this will probably strike you as incredibly, mind-blowing that in Australia, in sunny Australia, we actually have a ridiculously high level of vitamin D deficiency. Okay, we're not talking about kids with rickets or, developmentally low levels of vitamin D. We're talking about the fact that we are so sun smart and so sort of indoorsy a lot of the time, or protective of our sun exposure a lot of the time, that we just don't get enough exposure to the sun, which is very sort of contradictory to what we find clinically. Especially in older age, we find that people are actually sun worshippers. We find that people have, skin cancers, that they have sun damage, early onset cataracts, or they have some, severe damage to the macula and, early onset age changes, things like that. So the exact opposite of what you would think with a country that is plagued by vitamin D deficiencies. So I personally hypothesize that what's actually happened is that this generation is so good, not really that we're that good, but there's a lot of us who are avoiding sun exposure and sort of tanning and really just lying in the sun, basking in the sun, because we're scared of, freckles and age spots, because we're very, very aware of sun cancers and we're very, very aware of aging that the sun can cause, that we actually experience the reverse. We experience a deficiency of sun exposure. Realistically, we should have enough sun exposure just by being outside in a place like the south half of Australia. I'm in Victoria. So there should be enough daylight and sunlight to be outside for 10-15 minutes to show, your forearm, and that is enough to get what you need. But apparently not, because a recent blood test showed that I need to be back on my good old friends. And I've got two that I like. This is one that I have taken before, and this is another. I don't have a particular preference of which one I use. It's both liquid. They get sprayed under the tongue. My kids can take it, which is really great. I actually love this brand altogether, the Bioceuticals. I don't know if you can see it in the reflection of the ring light there. Bioceuticals, they're a great brand. Oh, they're a great brand. I have a lot of stuff by them. Very, very reputable, very, very highly recommended, and it always shows up in the tests. So I've taken their zinc, I've taken their they've got a really fantastic multi, which is really great for immunity, called Armor Force. All the things, right? This is just me personally buying them from my health food store just down the road next to where I work. And I've purchased this brand for probably a decade at least. Never failed me. And the other brand, the Biomedica, also really good. Don't know too much about them. They're both practitioner prescriptions, so you do need a naturopath or a pharmacist there to be able to purchase. You can't just buy it from, say, a supermarket, which is why I love them, because they do have to go through that extra level of checking and all the things, right? So that's my personal experience and my personal choices. Not a naturopath, not a chemist, not a pharmacist. I'm an orthoptist, and I've done my research about how vitamin D, aside from the fact that it's so important for your immune system, it's so important for your energy levels, it's so important for everything else to work in your body, I found out what it does to the eyes. Having said all that, I'm about to put some of my beautiful mineral sun cream on. Now, this beauty lives in my bag because oftentimes in Australia, what you'll find is that they promised you it would be cold and then it wasn't. They're promising overcast and it's a really glary day. So I still think that you have to have your broad spectrum sunscreen on, at least on your face. So that's why it's in my bag, because it's more for the kids. If the sun comes out and they're running around, we've gone to the park or whatever, I just like to do, just their necks and their ears and, places where the sun really does get them. Noses, faces, that sort of thing. For me, it's definitely the T-zone. Really, really important just across here, because I do have a lot of spots. Now, most of these were caused by children rather than sun damage, but I've always had a few freckles through there, so it's just important that they never become skin cancers or anything like that. Now, I'm a lot darker than a lot of my family members. My skin's far more olive, whereas they're a bit more blue tone. So it's very funny that, you know, I'm the one with the deficiency, but whatever. We'll fix it, won't we, ladies and gentlemen? We'll fix it. All right, so just a very light layer, which means it won't be 50, SPF 50, because I've only done a light layer, but it'll be a good start, let's put it that way. It'll be a nice little protective layer, so it'll probably give me, you know, a portion, a percentage of that 50, which is enough considering the layering of makeup that goes on top will also have some SPF and also will give me some barrier to the sun exposure. Now, I don't do my arms unless it's sunny, okay, or usually my legs are more or less covered up. The rest of them is more or less covered up. So that's just the main part where the sun shines, basically. So that's where I'm aiming for. Now, one thing that my research actually surprised me a lot on is that there is some research out there. Now, this is not really, I haven't found anything I'm ready to sort of trust or sort of share clinically or make people take vitamin D clinically for, but there is some evidence that low vitamin D is associated with dry eye. Now, it's really ironic because we've been prescribing omega-3s for dry eyes for a while now. That's not new. And that's, you know, that's been quite effective, actually, especially people who are taking like a natural source of omega-3, something like a flaxseed or, you know, something like that. That's been a really great result clinically for those people, which we're really happy about. But we haven't actually considered that there's a vitamin D component. We've never really, that I'm aware of, checked someone's vitamin D levels in an eye clinic. But now that I've read that, it'd be something to really sort of watch out for. So yes, we're telling people to wear sunglasses and protect the backs of their eyes and protect their lenses from ever forming cataracts and things like that. We're definitely asking for them to cover their eyes up so that they don't develop connective tissue changes on the surface of their eye, because the sun can definitely do that. You can get sunburnt on your eyes. That's definitely a factor, and that's a factor we're very aware of because it's quite quick to present itself. You know, like the eye would hurt pretty quickly, it would need treatment pretty quickly, and pterygia tend to form over a few decades, whereas cataracts and macular degeneration, they take years and years to form. So we know about the quick stuff by looking at the damage the sun can cause, but we know about the slow stuff as well because we see it in the older generation and we can relate back to their behaviors as youth and, you know, how they came to sustain the damage. Sun exposure at the end of the day is a form of free radical. It all comes back to that same old lesson of moderation is key. At the end of the day, we need the sun. We need our bones to form and we need all the things that vitamin D is responsible for. But we don't necessarily need to overexpose ourselves, burn ourselves, or, you know, sustain damage at all. So how do you find that happy medium, right? Well, the thing is that a lack of vitamin D is also associated with, and this is something that's coming from a bit more of a several trustworthy sources and studies, is that it causes things like uveitis, which is swelling of the iris and associated body. There's a video on this channel on that. There's macular degeneration, which I just mentioned, which is the age-related sun damage. And again, these articles kind of hint towards dry eye. They don't actually state it, but they hint towards dry eye. And in this case, I interpret it as if your connective tissue gets damaged from sunburn or, you know, becomes degenerated, a little bit like pterygia and pinguiculum. You can find that video here as well. Then, you know, obviously it's going to cause a secondary dry eye. But here we are having studies that are saying no, before it causes, you know, visible changes to the surface of the eye, it can cause some basic dry eye changes, which to me is like, wow, you know, we're getting people who are saying, oh, every time I go out in the sun, it makes me cry. And we sort of think, yeah, because the light's bright. That makes sense. But no, sometimes it might actually be some short bursts of acute dry eye, for example, that by the time they present to the clinic has already resolved because they're young and their cells are healthy and it can self-resolve. But it can also recur. And I'm starting to think that, hey, this vitamin D business, it's got a lot to answer for. The other things that we do know about vitamin D is it's linked to things like cancer, like high blood pressure, osteoporosis, bone pain, depression definitely, and also just sun exposure has definitely been linked to depression. So vitamin D may be a very big factor of that. Asthma and multiple sclerosis. So again, we're coming back to that inflammatory conversation, just like with the eyes, and even dementia. It's really interesting because I don't believe I personally have a deficiency in sun exposure at all. I'm not a sun worshipper though. Haven't been for many, many years. but I definitely don't hate the sun or avoid it. And except for wearing sunscreen fairly regularly, you know, sort of 300 at least days of the year on my face, I very rarely wear it on my arms or legs or anywhere else. The clothes I wear aren't specifically 50 plus SPF, they're just typically things like cotton or blends. So I don't see why, you know, that would be an issue. And I do tend to do this. I tend to roll my sleeves up a bit. And I don't tend to cover my sort of calves or ankles and things like that, which a lot of people in my community do, but I personally don't. So I find it very boggling to see why, you know, specifically this is occurring in me. Typically, a deficiency in vitamin D can result through the inadequate production in your skin, which we know certain skin types do have a harder time at producing vitamin D from this just sun exposure. There are whole ethnic groups that have a tendency towards vitamin D deficiency. That's something for each and every one of you to sort of look up for yourself if you're a part of that ethnic group, because it's not actually possible by looking at someone's skin to determine what their melanin function is going to be. That's not how it directly works. But, you know, it does surprise me, let's just put it that way, for my skin color, my skin tone, and the way I get a tan and things like that. It really does surprise me. The other thing is not enough vitamin D in your diet. And this is where it gets really, really fun. This is the part of my research that I was really, really, I guess, pleased about or impressed with. And that is that vitamin D in food is oily fish. We're coming back to that same gorgeous oily fish, which I love. So consumption of fatty fish and seafood will not only give you your omega-3, high omega-3s, and the fattier the fish, the better, but also things like calcium in there, things like zinc in there. There's so many other really good things in an oily fish. So if you're not vegan and you're able to source a ethically sourced and a fairly fresh fish, a fatty fish, things like salmon, trout, sardine, I encourage it. You know, if you don't like the taste, there are ways to, you know, disguise the taste. You can have dips instead of just a roasted fish. You could have, I personally roast my fish with citrus, and it just decreases that fishy sort of smell. The citrus overpowers it and tastes really beautiful. There's ways to go about it to still include it into your diet. Pretty, in a very pleasant way. Surprisingly, mushrooms. Mushrooms have vitamin D, a high vitamin D, and egg yolks. Egg yolks, the vitamin B kings of our diet. Apparently, yolks are really, really great for your D as well. The other thing that several websites recommended was to eat fortified foods. Now, this is true of our milk. We do have fortified milk in my house. I have a lactose intolerant child, and I myself do not at all do very well with dairy. It's a whole other story. But in order to get our calcium, I have been purchasing fortified almond and coconut milks, which have at least 300 milligrams of calcium, but a lot of them also add their vitamin D to the mixture. So definitely look out if your milk, or MYLK, whatever the case might be in your household, also has extra calcium or enough calcium in there, and that they have the added vitamins in there. It's very, very important to have every single thing that you're taking be nutrient rich, otherwise you end up with just empty calories. There are a lot of, especially almond milks for sale in Australia, which are just water. I mean, we're talking about like 11% almonds, which is, what is that? And the rest is just salt water. I mean, and you pay like $5 for a litre. It's ridiculous. So not only is it a waste of money, it's also a waste of time, and it's also misleading. You think, especially if you're giving it to your children, that you're giving them the right thing, but you must read the fine print. And yes, fortified foods is a nice and easy way to naturally, you know, a lot of these fortified additives, they're naturally sourced. So if you can increase the way you intake your nutrition through the foods you're already having, just adding to what you're already having rather than having to replace or take away, all the better and all the easier to make that adjustment. And last, the recommendation, but definitely not least, I would actually argue that's probably the first thing you would look to, especially if you're, you know, low enough where your doctor's going, I should really tell you you're low, and that is take a supplement. So that's guys like these. I personally love a liquid. Liquids are faster absorbed. They don't hurt your tummy. They never really make it to your tummy. They're typically absorbed through the mouth, through your saliva. Whereas a lot of the tablets, especially the ones in sort of capsules and things like that, they do need to go through the gut. So if you have a bit of a sensitive gut, then you know, you might have a bit of a hard time taking supplements. This is definitely a good way out of the problem. Also, it doesn't taste bad, so kids have a really easy time, especially kids who don't want to swallow capsules. This is a really easy way to do it, and also because it's liquid, less wastage and less fillers, because all you need is, I think it's 3 sprays for an adult. This says 1 spray, which is 180 microliters. is a dose for an adult, but I was recommended to take 3 and 1 for the kids each. So my kids are now almost 5 and almost 7. So, and that still remains true, that they get 1 spray each a day. And they're out in the sun all the time, but because they were both born vitamin D deficient, I've just kept up their vitamin D. I just am a typical mum and have been forgetting myself. So that's how it goes, right, mums? I should really mention, because I think it is important to just go through it, the other things that can be caused by vitamin D deficiencies, because I think this is a topic that is often underrated. I don't think it's mentioned enough in the literature that I've come across, and I come across it a lot because of what I do. I get a lot of nutritional literature, just spam almost, sent my way about eyes, and I hadn't heard about vitamin D before in all of it. You know, they talk about a lot of other things, omega-3s and vitamin B and vitamin C, and definitely talk a lot about antioxidants. They don't talk about vitamin D much, and that's because a lot of, and even in my research, which was targeted at eye health, a lot of it pointed back to gastrointestinal diseases and renal diseases a little bit, not that much, but a little bit, and spoke a bit about liver diseases as well, associated with the vitamin D deficiencies. I knew that vitamin D is important for the bones, and it's important for sort of our nervous system. That I knew for sure. But I never, you know, and just, we all know it's sort of associated with that calcium uptake, because a lot of the calcium supplements do come with a D kind of automatically. So I kind of knew about all that, but this was news to me, and I should be the last one that these things should surprise, considering what I do. Many sites recommend spending time in the sunlight, which is very wise, because that's where the vitamin D comes from, the sun, but you have to do it very safely. So if you are going to be out in the sun, please do wear a sunscreen, please do wear your sunglasses, and please do wear a hat. Do not risk heat exposure or heat stroke, or, you know, overexposing, especially the eyes, to the sun. Get your, you know, bare minimum vitamin D through skin, which is protected, so that you're getting it passively rather than aggressively. And that way, hopefully, you will get away with having enough vitamin D and not risking things like skin cancers or, you know, skin burn even, or any kind of irritation or inflammation to your body. So absolutely, yes, it's true. The sun is a big old vitamin, and you can definitely treat the sun as a vitamin, because it does give you a lot of nutrition, a lot of good, and it definitely is great for mental health, you know, to really raise the spirits and give you that boost of energy. However, it has to be done responsibly and safely. All right, well, I hope that you guys have learned something, as have I, researching for this video, because I've always had a vitamin D deficiency. Every single blood test has always shown a vitamin D deficiency, but it was particularly low this time, and that was a little bit of it was a bit of a wake-up call for me, especially that I have beautiful things like this just sitting there in my front room and get given to the kids very regularly. I'm very good with the kids, but you forget yourself sometimes, especially if you're a busy mum. So I hope that I've helped someone out there today, and my research has taught you guys something as well. If you enjoyed today's video, please like the video, hit the thumbs up, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about all of this. Is there a particular area of research that you've done that surprised you, maybe, or one that you'd like me to do for you, and, you know, share what I know about a particular topic or area in health? Happy to do it. For more background information, a bit more everyday life stuff, please head over to Instagram. There's definitely more to it over there, so please do check it out. Lots of exciting things happening in the philanthropy space as well, so definitely watch that spot if you follow me over on Instagram. Of course, most importantly, if you haven't yet subscribed, please go ahead, hit that big red subscribe button, turn it grey is good, and join this creative family. Wherever you are out there, lovelies, I hope you're having an amazing day. I hope you're staying safe and you're getting your safe amount of sunlight. And I can't wait to see you on the next one. Bye.